I am the founder and director of Mothers Uncovered. That's a name that gets spam filters very exercised. We're a peer-led organisation that supports women with the adjustment to motherhood. And we've helped hundreds of women in Brighton and Hove, where we're based, with our creative peer support groups that are based more on the mother than on the baby. So just to give you a little background about why I set it up. So the scene, which I'm sure is familiar to many of you, you give birth, the midwife places the baby in your arms, and the received wisdom is you're supposed to think, this is wonderful, this is the beginning of the rest of my life, not, this is too much, where is the exit? But for a lot of women, it's a huge, overwhelming shock. Now, I remember really clearly the midwife saying to me, let's get mum up to the ward. And I genuinely thought, my mum's not here, is she? When did she arrive? Because I was mum, and I could not cope with the fact that I was mum. So for those first few weeks, it just was incredibly hard. I cried every day. I felt very isolated. I didn't have any friends or family around me who had babies. All the attention I'd had in pregnancy was gone. Every group I went to focused purely on the baby, not what I was doing. So I felt invisible, lonely, and like I was failing. But not failing enough to be flagged up as postnatally depressed, because what would that mean? Would that mean that my baby that I loved so much might be taken away from me? And I think this is what keeps a lot of women trapped. So I realized there are lots of other people who wanted to talk about what they were going through, to talk openly and honestly about the joys and the challenges they were facing as mothers and women. So I moved to Brighton and I set up our first groups in 2008. Now, it was only supposed to be that first year, but then I kept hearing other women would come approach me, are you going to be running some more of those groups? So I realized it was valuable, and it continued, and it's grown. So I've now got a whole team of facilitators, and they are all past participants, and that to me is hugely important, because lots of other people have spoken, it's really hard to do any kind of work that fits in to school hours. But they get to do valuable work, and I pay them. They're not volunteers, because I think what they're doing is very valuable. And it's what we do in the groups mostly is that it is a safe space to talk honestly, because quite often there might be things you want to talk about that you can't say to the rest of your family because it might be about the family. You need a safe space to express them. Also, it's a record of this time, because you think you're going to remember everything and you remember nothing. But so we do art and writing, mindfulness in these groups, and it just helps focus the mind, create a permanent record of what they're going through, and it validates what they're going through as well, because so many mums feel invisible. Their work is not valued, it's not seen. But if they can write it down and share it with others, then it does validate it. So yeah, it's primarily discussion in our groups, and I think it helps hugely that the mothers can speak to other mothers about what they're going through, because a health professional might be an excellent clinician, but they don't have to be a mother to do that job. It's like saying, I'm going to have my car serviced. The mechanic doesn't actually drive themselves, but they can, it doesn't make sense. You want to speak to somebody who knows what you're going through. So we do these regular 5-week groups. We have some offshoots. We have something called My Birth, which is about birth trauma. I don't know how many in the room have heard of the word matrescence, which means becoming a mother. So for those that don't know, it was coined in 1973 by anthropologist Dana Raphael, and it's starting to gain in popularity in this country. So she likened matrescence to adolescence. It shares with it change in body image, hormonal fluctuations, and new identity. Whilst there's reams written about adolescence, there's not that much written about the state of being a mother and all of the stuff that goes on in your head that you can't really articulate, but you know it's there and you know it's important. We do other creative things. We did a book in 2018. It's called The Secret Life of Mothers. So that's accounts of women sharing their experiences, and that's available on Amazon. And last year I started a podcast, which is called The Secret Life of Mothers as well, so you can go and find that up. What Anne and others have said, it's what I believe in very strongly, that motherhood is not valued. And for me, I started advocating about 10 years ago for it, because I met so many mothers who felt really broken by what they were going through. They'd come creeping into the groups and they say, things like, well, when I go back to work, it's like, whoa, you are working. This is work. Soothing a crying, teething baby is more work than, say, phoning somebody up and say, oh, you've been in an accident and can claim compensation. That's not work. Looking after a baby is work. And there's so much whataboutery. If a mother ever speaks up publicly about how hard it is, oh, well, in my day we didn't have any of this, or what about the dads, or what about the mums, what about the women who can't have children? It's that last one that stops women feeling they can't speak up. So I do quite a lot of campaigning and advocacy. One, around matrescence. We've got a petition on change.org called Support Matrescence. Last year I did a whole universal credit campaign, which Mum kindly helped me promote, about forcing people back into work when their youngest child turns 3, which particularly penalises single parents. A whole campaign around basic income, because if there was a basic income in place, that would liberate anyone who cares for somebody, which is probably most of us at some point in our life. I do speak a little bit publicly. I don't get very much attention because mums are never news, really, unless there's something critical. You know, the fact that, say, suicide is still the leading cause of death in new mothers, that might be attention, and you might get something about that. I was on Radio 5 a couple of weeks back talking about the Maternal Mental Health Alliance report, which talked about the paucity of perinatal care across England. There's only 46. None are in Sussex, which is where we're based, so I managed to get something out of that. So, you know, our problem in keeping going is we never have enough money. And we frequently get contacted by the head of the family hubs or the health visitor saying, please run some of your birth trauma groups. We can't run on nothing at all, and yet one of our groups costs about £1,500 to run a 5-week group, which is the cost of a hospital bed for one night. So why we don't invest preventatively is a mystery to me. So we do various other offshoots. The My Birth, we do Frazzle, that's an online peer support group for parents of SEND children. A specific group for young mums, because we had a few young mums who came to one of our sessions, said they hadn't felt comfortable coming because it was full of old mums, as in people over the age of 30, and teen years as well, which is for parents of older children. So it's all about giving mothers a voice, telling them that it's valuable, making them feel proud in the value of what they're doing, and just sort of giving them that space to care.